Hello and welcome! I am Brett Dupree and this is my awesome health journey. Today I am talking about a very important aspect of what I am doing, which is dealing with my issues. So I've been talking about dealing with my issues in intuitive eating and emotional eating, and I've been making amazing breakthroughs. But one thing I did notice during this time, in this year and a half, my spending hasn't improved at all. And so I recognize the fact that since I am using my intuitive eating to no longer using food, is what I should be saying, to deal and numb and not feel my problems, I am now using more spending to do so. So I'm taking one problem and transferring it to another one of my unhealthy, I will say, coping skills, like eating copious amount of food that feeds my adipose tissue. There's some big words for today. Isn't a way to help my life. So, but also, neither is buying a video game that I'm not going to actually play because it just looks exciting for that moment is also not going to help my life. That's just like, 30 to 40 if I get the collector edition, $80 down the drain for something I might spend 2 hours on. Like, I'm not saying don't buy video games. I'm saying I should buy video games that I'm going to actually utilize. And the same with board games, is I still have a bunch of board games in my room that I haven't played. Over $1,000 worth, to be exact. Well, that's not exact. But I was noticing I was falling into a pattern of racking up my credit cards, transferring my credit card debt to my low interest credit union credit card, feeling good, say I'm going to deal with my money issues, and then not, start budgeting, get frustrated, then not, and then I finally, all the way back in March of this year, I know, this is sad, it feels sad, I decided to utilize almost everything I've been using for food for money. Because here's something I learned a long time ago, is a saying, I mean, it doesn't 100% work, but it does work in some senses. Is how you do anything is how you do everything, which means like the way you deal with money is the same way you deal with food, the same way you deal with relationships, the same way, like there's similarities in like all your coping strategies for like most part of your life are the same. And sometimes when you fix one of them and really work on one of them, you can overcompensate on the other that you're doing the same thing. So this is why it's important to always really work on the underlying issues of the problems, or at least that's what I find in my life. Again, this is my awesome health journey. I know I'm getting into advice, but what I've learned for myself, so what I've learned is like I'm really focused on food, and I'm doing great. I'm like, the way I feel now is almost magical, but my spending is not magical. My spending is almost exactly the same, and it's very similar to food. Until finally March, I'm like, okay, let's utilize what I've learned from food and do it for money. And every day I use youneedabudget.com. I had it for, I think, 13 years now. And I always like try to use it, do well for a couple months, and then fail out of frustration. Kind of like food. And the important aspect of it for me is, as I was doing my budget every day, it was almost exactly the same. I'd buy more than I expect, not really paying attention. After a while, say forget about it, not want to deal with it, and then berate myself for not being able to get my spending down. And spending is actually almost just as scary as food. Like, because food is like, oh, yeah, I'm going to be unhealthy and I'm going to die. But that takes a while. That takes a long time. I can spend myself to the poorhouse tomorrow. Or if something happens to my job, I'm broke and I don't have no nest egg. Like, money is scary. And so working on my budgeting in the last few months, I also have to recognize I have to be kind to myself, even though it is scarier than food. Because again, food takes a long time to kill you. Money can kill you in a couple days. Like homelessness, by call you, I mean just homelessness or dealing with really bad money issues, or I declared bankruptcy in 2012. That was terrible. Everything can spiral really quickly. I'm in a good point now, but I'm just saying, like, money has this fear, at least for me. And so working on my budgeting has been really helpful. In fact, it's what allowed me to really work on myself when I dealt with the pain of my relationship when I finally started dealing with it, because I was dealing with my money for like a month and trying to work through that is not a coping mechanism, and food and my other coping mechanisms, just like unhealthy ones, aren't as, like, they're just not as prevalent. Like, if I search TikTok too much, after I'm done, I'm not all of a sudden worried if I'm going to pay rent, right? Or I'm not like stuffed with food and feeling gigantic. No, it's just not strong enough to really carry on. So I had to deal with it because I had no other way to cope. It almost forced myself to really cope with my emotions. And I think this is an underlying issue with a lot of food and money, or any kind of alcoholism even, is like, it's easy to switch from one coping mechanism and switch it all to another negative coping mechanism. So I don't think it's a good idea to really work on them all at once. I mean, if you're able to do that, great. I wasn't. But once I got food down, I took money, and now I'm working on that, and I'm not great yet, but I'm working on really trying to spend the money I have, and then after that, spend less money than I have, and start paying into the future and saving all that stuff and be responsible for the first time in my fucking life. 44 years old, the first time I'm responsible, as I'm in my $175 jersey. Woo, responsibility! I am the king of financial responsibility. Look at this jersey. It's sweet though. Not saying I shouldn't spend money to enjoy myself, but the thing is, the maximum enjoyment works there as well, because if I, instead of paying into the past money with this jersey and putting myself into debt, if I spend money that I allocate for it and say, oh, I have $175 to spend and it's great, I can just buy it and be like, hey, this is money I allocated. And so, yeah, so it all works. It all works. So, yeah, so I'm really working on spending to the point where next time I make a dumb big purchase, like, like this watch, which I bought on credit, but 0% APR credit, which is dangerous, or this jersey, which I bought not on credit, but I bought on money that I didn't really have allocated and kind of got me behind her in my credit cards. It will be more fun, and I'll enjoy it more, and I'll just feel safe and secure, and spending will be fun. And that's what I'm working on now. Working on food, and then I'm working on spending. I know, I'm 44 years old, and finally getting my life on track. That's the fun part of being a human. Some of us take longer. Anyways, like and subscribe and all that jazz. I know I need to look at the camera instead of my beautiful face. But yeah,